So I wanted to talk about some various ideas and concepts that I think are very important right now. I think as a country and as a world, we're going through some quite challenging times. And that's not something to be worried about or concerned over, because humanity will rise to the challenges always and always overcome them, as we always have. So without further ado, these ideas are intended to unite multiple perspectives and introduce kind of a true version of leadership, which is leaving your own bias out of certain situations and seeing the truth and subtleties and complexity of various topics, and how if we want to see those truths, we could have a better, brighter future in uniting amongst these things, or at least agreeing to disagree. So let's jump in. Let's start with, hard topics. Let's start with abortion. So I've seen both left and right talk kind of in language which is dividing and separatist, and either makes one feel victimized, which can manifest in their own life, or that other people are pure evil. And I don't believe either of these to be true. If we were to be honest, could we not see the truth in both perspectives? One being that who are we to decide for someone else about what's right for them and what's right for women? And then the other truth being, if somebody truly believes this as a life, as a soul, how could they not say something, do something, if they believe that their words and actions will protect this? And it's the job of a leader to see both these truths and to unite people in the fact that, hey, what's right for someone might not be right for everyone. Let's jump next topic. Let's talk about the war in Ukraine. So we are being sold, and I want to tell you that I'm about as American as it gets. I believe in America. Because I don't see it as our government or as the Pentagon or what some would call the military-industrial complex, basically making our decisions. I don't see them as America. I see our neighbors, our family, our friends, our coworkers. This is America, and so I'm pro-America. But let's get back to the war. So we're being sold by our media, which is owned by portions of our government and the industrial complex, that we are involved in this war and funding this war because we are the good guys and they are the bad guys, and don't listen to what they say. They're evil. And this is in no way pro-Russian at all. This is just the way I see it. So if you look at our government, at our military-industrial complex, and their actions and behaviors and their lack of actions, and I could go on for hours about these lack of actions or their actions, as far as invading other countries, changing leaderships, as far as funding conflicts subversively, providing weapons, getting involved only when it benefits this war regime and this infinite war complex. We don't get involved when there's human slaves, when there's genocide, when in Africa, or for example, or anywhere else in the world. We turn our blind eye to suffering, and yet at the same time, we're being told that we get involved because we're the good guys. Are we the good guys? Yes and no. We're both, the same as the other side. So you really have to listen to both sides. And again, as we go back to this leadership concept, we need a leader that would say, hey, there is truth in both perspectives here, and let's find that truth so that we can make a compromise and end this, so that young Ukrainians, young Russians are not losing their lives for these old men and women who are totally owned and operating purely from the state of perpetual war. And I would just like it to end. And even in this own situation with Ukraine, we have, us at the beginning where they were going to make peace talks, and we said, don't do it, fight to the bitter end. For what reason? We're talking about lives here. We're not talking about money or anything like that. And what I'm trying to tell you is we get involved simply when our interests are there. And they aren't the interests of the American people. They are the interest of this perpetual war state, which we must reject. And we must find some kind of normalcy and some kind of humanity in each other. So let's jump to the next topic, climate change. I see a lot of young people, particularly, who are super down in the dumps about, the world's going to end. We're past the tipping point. And there is some truth in that. Like we have done quite a bit of damage and deforestation. Carbon is absolutely a real thing. Affecting the chemistry of the earth does have consequences. Carbon in of itself, and this is a little bit of the flip side, but again, I'm just providing both perspectives. Carbon of itself is life. We are carbon-based life forms. So the idea that carbon alone is some kind of major evil is not entirely true. And the other thing is that it isn't just human activity that affects climate. Climate change is real, and it's happened for billions of years, and we can see it in ice cores, and it's just part of life. If you look at anything in life, things change. That happens. And I don't think it's a useful way to look at the subject as doom and gloom, because we must remember we create our own reality, at least in some formats. And if we believe in doom and gloom, or if you believe in the concept of the placebo effect and how that works, where our mind creates an outcome, at least attributes to an outcome, we need to reject the doom and gloom and rather embrace hope, embrace human ingenuity, embrace the fact that we most likely have technology that's free energy, that we can turn the earth into a garden, that we can right the wrongs, that we can rise to the challenges as we always have. And I think to do that, we need to just both come to the table and say, hey, yes, we have done some deforestation, but that doesn't mean humans are bad. It doesn't mean we need less humans. We just need to reorganize the way we do things. And it also doesn't mean investing in technology which isn't ready for the big time, which has major flaws, like as far as, you're putting solar in areas where when the sun goes down, you're out of energy, or, California saying you have to have all these appliances, and yet they're saying we're having blackouts in the summer because they don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the grid, they don't have the necessary tools to make this a useful case for people. So what you'll have is a decline in human living standards, which is unacceptable. We should always be hoping for abundance and a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves, but for others. And if we want to be truthful in the matter, like I said, I think the evidence shows that we have free energy, or at least abundant energy, that's mostly clean and is not as vulnerable as something like our grid, which could be taken out by something like a solar flare or a EMP or anything like this. So next topic, let's talk about, the ongoing thing about they, them, or transsexuals or different genders. Are there different genders? Yes, of course there are. Are there transsexuals? Do they exist? Yes, of course there are. I've met many of them. I'm friends with some of them. I don't view them all as some group that shares the same interests and hobbies, and I never collectively talk about them as if this is all one unit that moves in the same direction, one hive mind. We have to remember we're talking about individuals. And on the flip side of that too, if people don't believe in that concept, we can't necessarily force them to call us by a certain pronoun or say they're bad people because they don't believe in that. That's up to them to decide. And if they want to be rude, they can be rude to you if you ask them nicely. But it also, if you want to be offended by it, be offended. It's not going to hurt anybody but you. So if you find yourself in that concept or in that struggle between, are there genders, or is this real, or is it all bullshit and annoying? It's both. And I think we can come to the table on that and at least find some way to agree. And we don't necessarily need to hash that out. You can just say agree to disagree sometimes, because there's other bigger issues that we need to work on. And that whole viewpoint of viewing this whole world against you, like we're being sold through the same media, where, the trannies are going to take over your bathrooms, or the opposite end where, these bigots are not, accepting human life. That's both nonsense. And they do that to divide us. And if you look around in the media and every issue, they're dividing us by race, by gender, by class, by beliefs, by ideologies. And you need to ask yourself, is this people who are blissfully, spiritually ignorant? Or are they unbalanced demonstrably towards evil and knowingly selling us bullshit because they want to scam us with a pyramid scheme of money, which we'll get into in a minute? I would like to believe the first one, because I've met some of them and they're not too bright. So let's move to the next topic, like the border. So this was a dividing issue. It still is. I want to first talk about kind of a concept where America is kind of this bright, shining beacon of hope. And we want to be, at least. We want to hold up the candle and say, bring me your sick, bring me your wounded. But I think we can all agree that if you are a giver in your own life, and you give and you give and you give, and people take and take, and I'm not saying these people are takers, I'm simply saying that if we pay for people to have hotel rooms, and if we pay for people to have food and welfare to the point where we are no longer able to operate as a society, to the point where our citizens are suffering, to the point where we can't afford food, then we can no longer hold that candle in the shadow or in the dark, and it will diminish. And we will be left with nothing, not helping anyone. So we need to strike some kind of balance. And I think we can also agree it's not just, we have this concept of, you're either racist against the people coming across the border, or you're, providing these drug traffickers and human traffickers and criminals to get in. It's a little bit of both, let's be honest. So we can find some kind of balance there and some kind of truth saying, yeah, there is drugs. Yeah, there is human trafficking. Do we want to help people? Yes, we do. Should we help people? Yes, we should. But we should also guard our own energy to a point where we can keep holding that candle in the darkness. And with the next topic, let's go into... I haven't written anything down, so this is all off the cuff. Let's go into like Black Lives Matter. So, do they matter? Yes. Do all lives matter? Yes, obviously. At the end of the day, we're talking about a business, though, who, if you look into it, they kept most of the money that was donated, and they didn't help black people. And what did it do to the nation? basically taught a whole new group of young people that, these white people are out to get them, or that there's this system of white privilege. And I want to go into that a little bit, because it's more than just color. It's actually financial privilege. So, and it largely it does help white people, because when this whole pyramid scheme started after World War II in Bretton Woods, it was white people who owned assets. And when a pyramid scheme starts, the more and more people who adopt the pyramid scheme, in this case the US dollar, the more the value of those assets go up. And so traditionally black people had less assets. So we're talking about a situation where if you have less money, like think about going to court. If you can't afford a good lawyer who's going to be friends with the prosecutor and the judge and probably pay them off and take them to lunch, you're not getting the same representation. And it doesn't matter what color you are, most of the time. Sometimes it does. But if you have more money, you're going to be able to have more fairness. And we should really be looking to solve that, not get into people's heads and try to change them or try to make them feel bad about what their beliefs are. And really, with that being said, I would like to talk about a little bit about incorporating our shadow, because I see it often where people will judge others and they want to put all of their own guilt and shame of their own behavior, and they want to ascribe it to something outside themselves, because it's much easier for the ego to see evil as separate, or to see something bad as separate. When you do recognize that in yourself, then you stop looking to ascribe it to other people and say that, you're bad because of this, you're immoral because of this. Because you see it in yourself. And if you own it, it can actually be something useful. And I'm not saying you want to go around being bad, but if you see the bad in yourself, can bad be fun? Yeah, rock and roll music, man. Can bad help you in a situation? Yes. So really, this whole idea comes from the concept of you have to be able to see others in yourself and vice versa. And that's the concept basically that I kind of believe in as far as God, which is that you can think of God as almost an infinite mirror, and you can break that into infinite pieces. And in this case, broken does not mean bad or not useful. It means just that they're scattered and separated, and that's necessary for a reality, because you have to have some way to reflect on yourself. And the more ways you have to reflect, the more ways you can learn, and the funner it's going to be. And that's kind of what life's about, is fun and growth and learning. And so we really want to kind of acknowledge that we are all one in some way, and that the bad and the good are all a part of us and a reflection of us. And if we go around, thinking that all this in the world is bad outside of ourselves, we will manifest and create a bad reality for ourselves, one of depression and anxiety. And I missed one topic about I want to go back for a second about transsexuals. I think, some people who would say they don't exist. Now, in this concept that I just related to, I've studied a lot of death. And one thing that I think is a high probability is that our soul is separate from our body, and the body is just a vessel. And so could it be possible that, if we have reincarnation or something of the sort, that you have a deeply feminine soul within a male body? Yes, it could be possible. So is it possible that they feel like they're in the wrong body but don't have a mental illness? Absolutely. I think there's probably perfectly healthy people who just feel like that's not them, and that's fine. So we can talk about a few other concepts, but I want to also talk about how our education, our schools, our colleges and things, they kind of teach us to hate ourselves. They teach us about history, to, we're always the bad guys, and colonialism and all these things. And if you've traveled to other countries and look at the history, there's no country without terrible things in the past. And really, it's not very helpful to be ashamed of yourself. You should be proud of yourself. And does that mean we shouldn't try to get better? No, it doesn't mean that. We should always try to get better, but we should also be proud of ourselves. I also want to talk about one thing. If our government and if media is trying to purposely divide us, which I think is the case, or, like I said, they're just very ignorant. Why? Now, I talked a little bit about a pyramid scheme, and money is not just money. Money is the way we tokenize time, the most valuable asset. It's the way we tokenize knowledge, wisdom, how we transact goods, services, food, security, energy, and more. And so it's not just a piece of paper. It's not just monopoly money trading hands. We're talking about something of deep importance. And if it has that deep importance, we need to make sure the structure of it is designed in a way that brings out the best in humanity and the best for our planet. And what does that mean? It means that we probably shouldn't have a private central bank that's owned by private individuals with no transparency, no audits. It means that we shouldn't have tax money that is in black projects and that the public doesn't agree or know about. It means that we shouldn't be spending all this money killing people. We should definitely have a defense, but it means that the majority of us want to have a system that's fun to play. Now, life's kind of like a game, like Monopoly. Now, if they hold all the rules and they can create money from nothing, and now we're at a point where this Monopoly game, because the way it's designed, is that all the assets are out of reach of young people and minorities and pretty much everyone, actually. And so it's no longer fun to play. And so you have people dropping out. Why would you play? Making $14 an hour? You still have to live with your mom. You can't afford dinner. You can't afford a wife. You can't afford kids. So why would you play? We also need to have transparency, accountability, and no one can own it. And it can't be debt-based. We cannot borrow from a private bank with interest to build roads and bridges and schools and hospitals. Every topic we need to work on needs funding. And so that's the keystone behind this all. It is, if we fix it, we can start getting to work on rebuilding our roads, schools, bridges, highways, hospitals, education. We can fund making the world a garden, and we can start fixing these problems. We can get rid of banks with new technology. They no longer need to hold money. They no longer need to lend and loan. We can use AI and crowd loans, which means me, you, and 100 other people. We have our money in a DApp, a decentralized app that nobody owns. All the rules are set out, followed by computer code. Me, you, and 100 other people, where we provide somebody with a house loan. We get the interest directly back, and you skew the interest depending on your net worth. So you create a game where if you have low net worth, you get higher interest rates, incentivizing you to save and incentivizing you to progress to middle class and even beyond. And then as you work your way up in assets, you get to middle class, you start getting a little less interest. And then when you get very wealthy, you get even less. So the wealthy people, the game gets harder as you play it, just like every game ever made. And that's actually fun to play, because as you become a better player, you need a greater challenge. Our system is the exact opposite of that. We can't go to socialism because socialism involves the government taking over all these industries, and the government is immoral, incompetent, and just bad at everything they do. That's just the truth. And socialism starts centralized. Capitalism ends with it. Capitalism has no future because of the new technology, AI, blockchain, 3D printing, robotics. We simply won't need all the work. But that's not a bad thing, because we can use these technologies for abundance and to make the work-life balance better for every individual on Earth. And I think that's really the reason why I'm so passionate about all these, uniting these different perspectives, is because we really need to focus on that important thing, because we can figure those out later. We can have debates about those later. Let's figure out this key topic now, because it involves you affording groceries, gas. It involves you having a home over your head, providing for your children. And it's super important. So there's more topics. Let's see if I can think of any now. Well, yeah, I kind of put out a lot there, and I'm trying to flow the best I can, but it's hard to think of everything when you haven't prepared at all. So I hope you guys have a nice night. If I think of anything else, I'll add it to it. So thank you.